What if the difference between staying stuck and finally moving forward wasn't about your background, your IQ, or who you know, but simply a daily habit you choose? What if success wasn't something you chase but something you train for, quietly, through the way you think, read, and grow each day? Because in a world that's constantly shouting for your attention, the real power belongs to those who choose to stay curious, humble, and intentional about their growth. Now let me tell you something that might shift everything for you. Your future, your confidence, your career, your sense of purpose. It doesn't depend on luck, talent, or having the right connections. It all comes down to one thing: your decision to learn something every single day. Just that. That's the edge most people miss. While the majority wait for life to teach them the hard way through pain and failure, the top 1% choose to learn early, to reflect before they're forced to grow before crisis knocks. And that's the mindset we're stepping into today. You see, in a fast-moving, noisy world, your strength isn't found in being louder than everyone else. It's found in becoming wiser, in choosing to be a student of life always, not just when it's comfortable or popular, but especially when no one's watching. That's what separates those who quietly rise from those who loudly stay the same. And this idea isn't some feel-good theory, it's the essence of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and one of the most powerful men to ever live, still reminded himself every single day, you have to assemble your life yourself, action by action, and that journey starts with a commitment to learning. Now let's be clear, lifelong learning doesn't mean reading 100 books or stacking up degrees. It's about staying open. It's the courage to admit you don't know everything, and the curiosity to be excited by that fact. It's waking up and saying, teach me something new about myself, about others, about what it means to live better. Because when you carry that attitude, suddenly, life becomes your classroom. Everything starts to teach you: failure, discomfort, silence, even boredom. And that changes everything. Most people stop learning the moment they leave school. They think growth has an expiration date. But if you look at anyone who's built something meaningful, anyone who's strong on the inside, they never stopped being students. They studied their mistakes. They read with intention. They questioned their beliefs. Not to appear smart, but to live smarter. This mindset rewires your entire approach to life. It turns setbacks into breakthroughs. It turns ordinary moments into opportunities. It builds a kind of resilience that doesn't crumble every time life throws you something new, because your sense of self isn't based on what you already know, but on your commitment to keep learning. So, let me leave you with a question worth sitting with. Are you waking up each day as a student of life? Or are you just going through the motions, hoping something changes? Because the moment you choose to learn with intention is the moment you begin separating yourself from the noise quietly, consistently, powerfully. And that brings us to a crucial truth, one that most people miss. We talked about how books can transform you, but here's the part no one tells you. Most people read the wrong way. They read passively. They flip through pages, highlight a few lines, nod in agreement, and then move on, hoping, almost magically, that something will shift inside them. But growth doesn't work that way, not real growth. True reading is not passive consumption. It's active engagement. It's a full-contact mental sport. You argue with the author. You underline the line that makes your stomach drop. You pause. You breathe. You ask yourself, where in my life is this true? Where am I falling short? What would happen if I actually applied this? That's when reading stops being escape and becomes a weapon, a mirror, a call to action. And in a world drowning in distractions, reading is also an antidote. It cuts through the noise. It forces you into stillness. One voice, one thought, one idea that you follow all the way through without being yanked in 10 directions. That level of focus, in this era, it's a superpower. While the world scrolls mindlessly, you're training your attention. While others are chasing the next dopamine hit, you're choosing discipline over noise. And here's the beautiful side effect: when you read deeply and consistently, your mind becomes clearer. Your words get sharper. Your decisions become less emotional, more grounded. Let's be honest. Most people don't actually read, not deeply, not with intention. They scan tweets, they skim headlines, they scroll through captions. But they rarely sit long enough with an idea to let it do its work, to pierce their defenses and plant something new inside. That's your edge, right there. In a world full of skimmers, be a digger. Go deeper, reflect longer. Don't just admire the words, let them shape you. Let them challenge your assumptions, confront your excuses, and refine your principles. So next time you open a book, don't ask, how fast can I get through this? Ask instead, what part of this will live inside me forever? Because that's what true reading is. It's not about finishing chapters. It's about rewriting your character. And that brings us to another misunderstood truth: consistency. Everyone wants transformation. Everyone wants to grow, evolve, level up. Almost no one is willing to show up when it gets boring, when it's quiet, when there's no one to cheer them on. That's where the real battle happens. That's where identity is formed. See, success doesn't come from sudden bursts of motivation. It's born in the slow, steady, almost invisible choices we make daily. Especially on the days when we don't feel like it. Consistency isn't about intensity. It's about identity. When you do something, every single day, it stops being a task. It becomes part of who you are. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. That's exactly what the Stoics believed. They didn't wait for motivation to strike. They acted, intentionally, repeatedly. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "At dawn, when you struggle to rise, remind yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." That wasn't poetic fluff. That was his alarm clock, a daily ritual to align his actions with his duty, because greatness doesn't happen in loud, dramatic scenes. It's forged in quiet repetitions, day after day, when no one's clapping. But here's the trap: most people want change without rhythm. They want the results without the work, so they start with fire, and then fade. And every time you quit something that mattered, you send your brain a signal: this is too hard. We don't do hard things. And next time, you'll give up even faster. That's why consistency matters so deeply. It builds something more powerful than momentum. It builds trust. Trust in yourself. Every tiny action you repeat is like casting a vote. This is who I am now. And over time, those votes, they add up. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't skip it just because you're tired. You don't wait for inspiration. You just do it because it's part of your identity. Simple, reliable, non-negotiable. And just like brushing your teeth without thinking, that's exactly how your habits should feel. Whether it's reading a few pages, stretching your body, journaling your thoughts, or learning something new, make it automatic. Remove the option. Take willpower out of the equation. Make it part of your identity, not something you debate, but something you just do. Because when something becomes who you are, it stops feeling like a struggle. It stops requiring motivation. It becomes your rhythm, your standard. And that's where transformation truly begins. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet repetition of tiny steps. Done consistently, repeated faithfully, not for immediate glory, but for inevitable growth. And that's the mistake most people make. They chase hacks. They look for shortcuts, magic formulas, instant wins. But not you. You're choosing the long path. The solid path, the path that may not glitter, but never fails, the one who stays on it long enough. So ask yourself honestly, what's one small, doable action that, if repeated every day for a year, would quietly change your life? Start with that, stick with that, Because your future isn't built by the things you do once in a while. It's built by what you do without fail. And once you understand that, once you see consistency as a muscle, you'll start seeing another powerful truth. That in a world overflowing with distraction, deep focus is your secret weapon. We live in an age where everything fights for your attention. Ads, apps, notifications, noise. And every time you try to focus, it's like your brain steps onto a battlefield. One part wants to grow, the other craves comfort. And comfort today often looks like your phone, endless scrolling, dopamine loops, conversations that lead nowhere. But here's the truth. If you can train yourself to enter deep focus even for a short window of time, you'll accomplish more than people who stay busy all day but never move forward. That's not just theory, that's ancient wisdom. The Stoics lived in turbulent times, yet they weren't pulled by chaos. They trained their focus not by controlling the world around them, but by mastering the world within. Epictetus taught that our attention is sacred, that it must be protected like a fortress. Because what we allow in ... shapes everything we think, feel, and become. And let's face it, modern life is an ambush. Constant opinions, endlessly scrolling feeds, distractions disguised as urgency. None of it makes you better. It scatters your energy and leaves your mind cluttered. But deep focus, that's your armor. And it's not just about getting things done. It's about preserving your clarity, protecting your peace, reclaiming your ability to think deeply, decide wisely, and move deliberately. True focus begins with intention. It means sitting down, choosing one thing, and declaring, "This matters. Right now, this is all that matters." But here's the kicker. That kind of focus isn't comfortable. It requires you to delay gratification, to resist the easy pull of quick pleasure, to sit with discomfort when the scroll is just one tap away. But something powerful happens when you push through that resistance. Time slows, thought sharpens, you enter flow. And in that space, 1 hour of effort is worth more than a full day of distracted busyness. Of course, focus doesn't happen by accident. You have to set the stage, create an environment where it can exist. That means space, that means silence. That means turning off the noise and declaring to the world, "Not now. I'm building something." And that one small act of setting a boundary, it changes everything. It's not about becoming a productivity robot. It's about being the kind of human who chooses presence over chaos, who chooses depth over speed, who chooses to create rather than consume. And with time, this focus, this intentional depth becomes your edge. While others drown in distraction, you move with clarity, with calm, with quiet confidence. That's rare. That's powerful. Because deep focus is the foundation of all mastery. Without it, even the most gifted mind stays average. So next time you feel the itch to check your phone for the 5th time in 5 minutes, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this helping me ... Or is it stealing from me? Your focus is your future. Protect it like everything depends on it. Because in more ways than one ... it does. And that leads us into the next essential piece of the puzzle, the force that drives high performance when motivation fades. Self-discipline. Discipline isn't glamorous, it's not flashy or loud. But it is the invisible force that separates the dreamers from the doers. It doesn't wait for the right mood. It doesn't care how you feel. It just shows up day after day doing what needs to be done, even when motivation is nowhere to be found. Because the people who win in the long run, they don't depend on being inspired. They depend on being disciplined. They've trained themselves to act regardless of emotion. And that's what makes self-discipline the quiet foundation behind every form of excellence. You can have big goals, big dreams, big talent. But without discipline to anchor it all, it crumbles. That's why discipline is so powerful. It's the bridge, the glue between who you are now and who you're capable of becoming. And yet, it's the very thing most people resist. They see discipline as something harsh, restrictive, like it takes the fun out of life. But that's the illusion. Because here's the truth: discipline doesn't take your freedom away, it gives it back. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. To them, discipline wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was self-respect in action. It was training your body, your mind, your emotions to remain grounded when the world shakes, to stay steady when life feels uncertain, to resist what's tempting but meaningless, and instead choose what's meaningful even when it's hard. Seneca once wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Let that sink in, because if you can't say no to yourself, you will always be controlled by something else. Whether it's laziness, cravings, distractions, or fear, you'll be a prisoner of your own impulses. Just look around. So many people trade their long-term peace for short-term pleasure. They snooze the alarm, procrastinate, binge, delay. And then they wonder why they feel lost, scattered, stuck. But the disciplined person, they rise early before they want to. They work through discomfort. They show up when no one is watching. And over time, that repetition becomes identity. They stop needing motivation because they trust themselves. They've built a pattern, a rhythm, a reputation with themselves. And that trust, it changes how they walk, how they decide, how they lead. Discipline doesn't mean perfection, it means commitment. It means forgiving yourself quickly when you stumble but returning to the path stronger. It means choosing what's right over what's easy. It means sacrifice not to suffer, but to strengthen. Because every small sacrifice you make for the right reason becomes a brick in your foundation. You're choosing discomfort now to avoid regret later. You're choosing alignment today to live with peace tomorrow. So next time you hit that point where it would be easier to quit, to justify, to scroll, to delay, remember, discipline is rare. And because it's rare, it has value. Every act of discipline sets you apart from the crowd. It makes you reliable, not just talented but trustworthy. The kind of person others can count on, and more importantly, the kind of person you can count on. In a world that glorifies ease, discipline is your edge. And from that discipline, something beautiful begins to form. Uncheckable confidence, not the kind that needs applause, not the kind that shouts for attention. Confidence built on discipline isn't loud, it's steady. And when it's rooted in something deeper than appearances, it doesn't shake when the surface changes. You see, most people build their confidence on unstable ground, on how they look, on their job title, on their social media presence. But what happens when those things fade, shift, or are taken away? Their confidence collapses because it was never truly theirs to begin with. That's why real, lasting confidence must be grounded in something internal. In your values, in your effort, in your preparation. Because those are the things that stay with you even when life gets chaotic. And the more you act in alignment with those values, the stronger you feel. You stop second guessing, you stop overthinking. You show up fully, not as a performance, not as a version of you tailored to impress others, but as your real self. That kind of presence is magnetic. People notice it, respect it, gravitate toward it. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you're authentic. And in a world full of noise and filters, being real is rare. So if you want to build uncheckable confidence, stop chasing it. Build habits that you can be proud of. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Speak less, do more. Let your actions carry the message. Confidence isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the one that doesn't need to prove anything because it already knows its worth, because it's earned. And this is exactly how the top 1% operate, not just in how they show up, but in how they think. What separates the top performers from everyone else isn't raw talent, connections, or some magical gift. It's mindset. And more than that, it's how they act on their mindset. While most people react emotionally, the top 1% respond with clarity. While most chase validation, they chase truth. While most wait for permission, they create their own lane. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a mental operating system built on focus, discipline, and execution. You see, average minds follow the crowd. Exceptional minds question the path. The top 1% don't waste energy on distractions, gossip, or drama. They treat attention like currency and they guard it like gold. They think before they speak, they act with intention. Their decisions come from principle, not pressure. And when something doesn't align with their values or their mission, they walk away. Quietly, cleanly, no drama. Just focus. That's how the Stoics lived. They didn't perform for the crowd. They didn't get lost in the noise. They trained their minds to stay calm while the world spun out. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each day, most things are outside your control, but your response is always yours. That's power. That's presence. That's leadership. But it's not just about how the top 1% think, it's how they move. They don't just plan, they act. They don't talk about someday, they show up today. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They create forward motion decisively, consistently, deliberately. That's where momentum is born. And that momentum, it's what separates the committed from the curious. If you really study the lives of high performers, you'll notice patterns. They rise early not to impress but to claim silence before the world starts shouting. They read not just to pass time but to sharpen their edge. They say no more than they say yes. They guard their energy. They build routines that support their goals. They don't try to be everywhere, they try to be excellent somewhere. So take a moment, ask yourself honestly, are your actions today aligned with the life you say you want? If someone watched you for a week, no words, just behavior, would they see someone preparing for greatness? Or procrastinating on it, because thinking like the top 1% is only the beginning? Living it, that's what truly sets you apart. And that leads us to the final shift, perhaps the most important. Relentless action. How do you actually execute every single day? That's the real difference between people who talk about goals and people who actually get results. The achievers don't just set goals, they move. They act. They execute, relentlessly. Even on the days they don't feel like it. Because relentless action isn't about being perfect, it's about staying in motion. It's choosing progress over perfection, forward momentum over mental paralysis. You see, action creates clarity. Every time you take a step, no matter how small, the fog begins to lift. You start to see what works and what doesn't. You adjust, you learn, you grow. But if you stay still, if you keep overthinking, everything begins to feel overwhelming. Doubts grow louder. Fears multiply. The path blurs. And here's the tough truth. The problem usually isn't that you don't know what to do. It's that you're not doing what you already know. The Stoics understood this at a deep level. Epictetus said philosophy wasn't something to be discussed, it was something to be lived. Don't explain your philosophy, he warned. Embody it. That means you don't wait until you feel courageous, you take courageous action. You don't wait until you feel disciplined, you do the disciplined thing. You move first, and eventually, your actions reshape your emotions. You stop trying to feel like a better person, because you start becoming one, through what you do. But here's the trap, most people confuse activity with productivity. They stay busy scrolling, reacting, multitasking, thinking they're moving forward. But real, relentless action, that's different. It's about doing the work that actually matters. Even when it's boring. Even when no one sees it. Even when there's no applause. It's about waking up and attacking your highest priority, not hiding in fake progress. It's about showing up especially when it's hard. Not once, not sometimes, but every single day. And yes, there will be days when you're tired, unfocused, overwhelmed. Everyone has them, but relentless people don't wait for conditions to be perfect. They don't blame circumstances. They adjust, they adapt, and they act anyway. They don't hope for momentum, they generate it. Not with speeches, not with vision boards, but with quiet, consistent motion. Small steps, taken without drama, without needing recognition. And those tiny, consistent steps, they create unstoppable momentum. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. What would your life look like if you simply followed through on what you said you would do? If you became the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves no matter what, you'd be amazed at how quickly your life would shift. Because in the end, it's not the smartest, the most inspired, or the loudest who rise to the top. It's the ones who move relentlessly. And that brings us to another trait the high performers share: mental toughness. Because you can have all the talent, all the drive, all the potential in the world, but if your mind collapses under pressure, none of it matters. Life will test you. It will bring you delays, rejections, unfairness, and setbacks. And when that moment comes, most people crumble. They slow down, they take it personally, they stop. But those who are mentally tough, they don't crumble, they pivot. They don't ask why me, they ask what now. Because mental toughness isn't about being emotionless, it's about emotional control. It's the ability to respond, not react, to endure discomfort without panic, to keep moving forward without losing your edge. And that level of strength, it's not something you're born with. It's something you build, one hard moment at a time. True mental toughness isn't forged in the spotlight, it's shaped in the shadows. In those small, quiet moments where no one is watching, when it's just you and a choice. To stay where it's safe, or step into discomfort. To give in, or stand tall. And that's the secret most overlooked. This strength doesn't come from a single big decision. It's built through thousands of tiny ones. Choosing discipline over drama. Purpose over emotion. Action over excuses. And that choice, it's not made once. It's made daily, sometimes hourly, especially when things get hard. So ask yourself honestly, when life gets heavy, what do you fall back on? Do you lean into fear or shift into focus? Do you default to excuses or rise with effort? Do you let the chaos outside dictate your peace inside? Or do you stay grounded, no matter the storm? Because the most powerful people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who kept going, especially when quitting would have been easier. And this mindset leads naturally to something deeper. Something few pursue, but everyone respects. Mastery. Mastery isn't a final destination. It's not a place you arrive at with a certificate or a finish line. It's a way of life. It's the daily decision to go deeper again and again when most people settle for good enough. And that's what separates the average from the exceptional. Not talent, not luck, not timing, but the willingness to do the simple things better and better until they look like magic. It's about refinement, precision, repetition, doing the basics so well, so often, that your skill becomes undeniable. And the hard truth, most people never even get close to mastery. Not because they're not capable, but because they quit too early. They get bored. They chase shiny objects. They move on the moment things stop being exciting. But mastery asks for the opposite. It requires boredom. It demands repetition. It feeds on discipline. It's the art of doing the same thing thousands of times, not just to get it right, but to never get it wrong. And this type of excellence, it's not glamorous. It's not viral. It's usually invisible, until it's not. The Stoics knew this deeply. They didn't aim to impress the world for a moment. They trained themselves to be strong for a lifetime, through daily rituals, through self-reflection, through simplicity. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for followers or fame. He wrote them for himself. to stay sharp, to stay focused, to stay humble. That's mastery, a quiet contract with yourself. A personal standard that doesn't depend on validation or applause. And let's be clear, mastery isn't just about skills. It's about self. It's about mastering your reactions, your values, your inner dialogue. When you master your craft, you become excellent. But when you master yourself, you become powerful, focused, uncheckable. And in a world full of distraction and noise, that kind of power is rare. But here's what most don't want to hear. Mastery takes time, years, sometimes decades. And in a culture addicted to speed, shortcuts, and overnight success, that's a hard sell. But if you can fall in love with the process, if you can show up day after day and sharpen your edge without needing applause, you'll become the kind of person who's impossible to ignore, not because you say you're great, but because your work makes the case for you. So pause and ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped dabbling and started dedicating? What if you picked one thing and gave it your full focus for the next 5 years? That's where mastery begins, not in grand gestures, but in quiet, obsessive consistency. And that brings us to one of the most overlooked but life-changing ideas of all, the 1% rule. Here's the truth most people ignore. Greatness isn't built on giant leaps. It's built on small, quiet improvements, on 1% gains, on the decision to do something a little bit better today than you did yesterday. That's what separates amateurs from true masters. Not a single breakthrough, but a series of micro decisions, made consistently, refined with intention, repeated with care. Think of it this way: if you improve just 1% every day for a year, you don't just become 365% better. Because of the power of compounding, you become over 37 times better. That's exponential. That's the hidden math of mastery. But here's the catch. To get there, you have to be patient, you have to be consistent, and you have to fall in love with progress that nobody claps for. The Stoics lived this truth before anyone gave it a name. They weren't chasing applause. They focused on doing the next right thing. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself again and again, focus on what's in front of you. Do it with clarity, without drama, without ambition, because he understood something simple and powerful. Excellence isn't a moment, it's a practice. It's not found in big accomplishments. It's built, moment by moment, in how you handle the small things, especially when no one's watching. That's why the 1% rule isn't just about productivity, it's a mindset. It's choosing to believe that showing up matters, that small steps are not a waste, that reading one page, doing one more rep, choosing one better word adds up. It's about giving 1% more effort, 1% more focus, 1% more follow through, and trusting that over time, those tiny upgrades will redefine who you are. The beauty is you can apply this mindset to anything. Your health, your finances, your mindset, your communication, your relationships, your leadership. You don't need a revolution. You need intention. You need to stop chasing dramatic change and start compounding small ones. Because eventually, those 1% improvements become a canyon between you and everyone else. And they won't even realize how you got so far ahead because they weren't paying attention while you were paying attention to the details. So ask yourself right now, what area of your life is just 1% away from a breakthrough? Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for certainty. Don't wait for perfect conditions, just start. Choose one small thing and improve it today, then do it again tomorrow. And watch what happens when you stop chasing overnight success and start building unstoppable momentum quietly, consistently, intentionally. And that leads us into the final principle. Your competitive edge, because in a world obsessed with rushing, copying, and chasing trends, real advantage belongs to those who slow down, go deep, and move with clarity. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters better than anyone else. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." That line isn't just poetic, it's a wake-up call. Because your edge in life isn't about speed. It's about clarity. Clarity about what truly matters. Clarity about how to spend your time, your thoughts, your energy, not chasing noise, but creating depth. Most people, they live reactively. They're pushed by pressure, shaped by opinions, driven by fear. But those with a real edge, those who rise and stay ahead, they move from principle, not panic. They don't chase trends, they build what lasts. They're not worried about winning the week. They're focused on winning the decade. And that kind of mindset, that kind of long game discipline, it's rare, which is exactly why it works. But let's be honest, staying ahead isn't some big one-time decision. It's a daily choice, a moment-by-moment recommitment to what matters most. It's deciding to keep learning, when others stop, to keep refining. When others relax, to stay grounded. When others drift. It's the way you live when there's no spotlight, no audience, just you, and the standard you set for yourself. That's what builds a future no one can take from you. So now the question becomes simple and deeply personal. Are you willing to be that person? Are you willing to keep showing up, to sharpen your edge day by day? To rise above the noise, not for the applause, but for the impact. Because if you are, you won't just stay ahead. You'll become someone the world watches. Someone the crowd eventually follows. And the best part, you don't need to outshine anyone. You just need to outgrow who you were yesterday. That's it. That's the quiet power of growth. It's not flashy, but it's real. And it lasts. While others chase shortcuts, distractions, and applause, you're choosing something different. A path of clarity, of learning, of self-mastery, and that path, it doesn't just change what you achieve, it transforms who you are. Because at the very heart of this journey, this message, this episode, there's one uncheckable truth. The greatest investment you'll ever make is in your mind. Not just once, not just when it's easy, but every single day, through deep learning, through focused execution, through relentless self-discipline, and through honest reflection. You sharpen yourself, you become resilient, and you rise not by luck, not by accident, but by decision. And over time, that daily decision compounds. It becomes something others can't understand, because they didn't see all the quiet days you showed up without fanfare. So wherever you are right now, whatever you're facing, whatever feels heavy, hard, or unclear, know this, you're not stuck, you're just one habit away. One insight, one honest step, one brave moment from momentum. But only you can take that step. Only you can choose to keep going. Because the people who stay ahead, they're not better than you. They've just stayed committed, longer than most. So if today's message resonated with you, share it with someone you care about, subscribe, leave a review. And let's keep growing this tribe, this community of thinkers, doers, and relentless learners. Until next time, stay sharp. Stay grounded. And above all, keep rising.